Entitled mother lets her kid steal my blind cane. Have you ever had one of those days where everything is a learning experience, whether you want it to be or not? That was me, a 28-year-old woman trying to navigate the world after recently going completely blind. My journey into darkness began over a decade ago while volunteering in Mississippi to help rebuild homes after Hurricane Katrina. I joined my local youth group, full of hope and determination to contribute meaningfully. Amidst the mold, dust, and devastated houses, I unknowingly picked up a fungal parasite called histoplasmosis. This stealthy intruder slowly made its way to my eyes, and over the years, it stole my vision little by little until about a year ago I was left in total darkness. Adjusting to life without sight has been incredibly challenging. The transition was made all the harder by the absence of a support group or any kind of community to guide me through these early stages. The familiarity of daily routines shattered. I became a prisoner within my own home, fearful and embarrassed to step outside alone, haunted by the anxiety that everyone's eyes were on me. But I knew that eventually, I had to embrace my situation and learn to live independently. My husband has been my rock, constantly encouraging me to step out of my comfort zones. One morning, my husband asked me to take an Uber to the bank to deposit a rent check. Simple, right? Except for me, it was a monumental task. Still, I begrudgingly agreed, knowing that each outing was a step towards regaining some semblance of control. While I was out, he messaged again, reminding me that we were out of a few crucial groceries. Coincidentally, there was a Walmart grocery store just across the street from the bank. You'll have to learn how to shop alone eventually, I told myself. Why not now? This could be a test, I mused, a way to measure how much I'd learned about navigating a sighted world without sight. With my white cane in hand and a minimal list of items to purchase, I set off, determined yet cautious. Entering the Walmart, I was engulfed by the cacophony of bustling shoppers, the distant beeping of registers, and the murmur of conversations that blurred into one another. For most people, this would all blend into the background, but for me, every sound was a potential landmark, and every voice a potential obstacle. The scents, fresh bread from the bakery, the sterile tang of cleaning supplies, painted a picture in my mind, guiding me as I maneuvered through the aisles with my cane. I started with the familiar rhythm of echolocation. It's a skill I had begun to learn, the way sounds bounce back off objects, giving me a rough idea of my surroundings. Though I was still clumsy with it, I was learning, bumping into things less frequently than I used to. This cane was my lifeline. It gently tapped the cold tile floor, giving off subtle vibrations that told me the texture and layout of the pathway ahead. Initially, I managed fine. I picked up bread, milk, and a few vegetables, slipping them into the small cart I'd grabbed. However, as I ventured deeper into the store, I started to feel the familiar wave of anxiety creeping up. I wondered if people were staring, judging me for every slight misstep. Then my cane hit something softer than expected. A human leg. Panic surged. "Shoot, I'm sorry," I blurted, hoping to diffuse any tension, but the response wasn't what I expected. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," I began, my voice timid but sincere. But instead of understanding, the woman who I later dubbed the entitled mother, M in my mind, erupted. "How could you not see him? He's clearly right here." Her voice boomed, slicing through the store's ambient noise, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. I could feel the weight of their stares once more, the eyes of those who had stopped to watch the drama unfold. Now, here's where things get tricky. I don't wear sunglasses, the main reason being that the good ones with UV protection are prohibitively expensive, around $200 a pair. Beyond that, I've never wanted to hide behind the prototypical look of a blind person. I want people to treat me like anyone else, not someone seeking pity. Still, her confusion was somewhat understandable. Blindness is a spectrum, after all. "Ma'am," I explained patiently, "I'm blind. I can't see anything, let alone your son. That's why I use this cane, so I can get around without bumping into things." Her tone didn't soften. "If you're blind, why aren't you wearing big sunglasses?" One of the many ignorant questions I've grown accustomed to. But I always try to answer such questions cheerfully, knowing that ignorance often stems from a lack of exposure rather than malice. "They're really expensive, and I don't really need them inside," I replied. "You're not blind, you're faking it," she declared accusatorily. I felt the temperature in my body rise, my blood boiling. I couldn't fathom why anyone would believe someone would pretend to be blind. It's not an experience anyone would willingly choose. It's a living nightmare. Feeling the wet sting of tears behind my eyes, I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, I felt a harsh tug. The horror washed over me as I realized her son, the entitled kid, Ek, had snatched my cane from my hand. For those unfamiliar with the life of a blind person, a cane isn't just a tool. It's an extension of oneself, akin to a lifeline. Without it, I was lost. Imagine stumbling around in utter darkness, having had your only guide, your only means of seeing, violently taken away. Panic gripped me. My voice became shaky with desperation. "Please give that back. I really do need IT." But M was relentless. "No you don't, you liar. My son deserves to play with this more than you." I heard her shuffle away, the harsh clatter of my cane against metallic displays echoing in my ears as they left. It was disorienting, like having the ground pulled out from beneath me. Not knowing what direction to turn, I began to wave my arms frantically, reaching for some kind of stability but only meeting void. Spiraling into a full-blown panic, I crashed into a center aisle display, knocking items to the floor with a loud clatter. The noise drew more attention, exacerbating my anxiety. Curled into a ball, I cried, feeling utterly alone in that chaotic world of darkness. I had no idea what to do. Waves of helplessness washed over me, each more intense than the last. The looks, the whispers from onlookers. Could they have no empathy? Could they not see how terrified I was? Suddenly, I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. A man's voice, calm and reassuring, asked if I was okay and told me to stay put. "We'll call him Ag for awesome guy." I nodded weakly, still sobbing, but I could hear his confident footsteps walking away. Moments that felt like hours passed. My breathing was shaky, the hiccups of sobs still shaking my frame, and then I heard it. A thunderous, commanding voice cut through the din, conjuring images of an angry lion. A loud crash followed. The next thing I knew, Ag was back, his broad, reassuring presence beside me. He gently put my cane back into my trembling hands, guiding my fingers around the familiar grip. "Thank you," I stammered through my tears, struggling to collect myself. "Thank you so much, I didn't know what to do. Don't worry about it," he said in a deep, comforting tone. "Some people are just monsters." His kindness reignited my faith in humanity. He helped me gather my scattered items and even finished shopping with me, ensuring I made it out of the store without further incident. As we walked towards the exit, I couldn't help but overhear the familiar screeching of M. She was yelling something about Ag grabbing the cane and pulling hard, flinging her child into a shopping cart. Whether exaggerated or not, it explained the crash I'd heard earlier. As Ag escorted me to the waiting Uber, my mind whirled with conflicting emotions. Despite the raw terror of being stripped of my cane, I found solace in realizing that there were people willing to stand up for me when I desperately needed it. This world could indeed be a scary place, especially in the dark, but it was also populated with individuals who possess a kindness that shines through adversity. In the Uber ride home, I reflected on the overwhelming kindness of Ag and the sheer hostility of M. Yet, beyond the stark contrast, I recognized that today had imparted a valuable lesson. It showed me both the depths and heights of human nature. Settling comfortably back home, I shared the ordeal with my husband, who listened with a mix of horror and pride. Horror at the treatment I'd endured, pride in the way I'd faced it, and the people who had supported me, regardless of being strangers. This encounter strengthened my resolve. I won't let fear of the unknown hold me back. This was just one of many steps towards adapting to my new reality. The journey would be long and fraught with challenges, but I wouldn't face it alone. The world without sight was indeed easier to navigate when illuminated by the light of human kindness. After my first solo outing, the reality of my situation settled into a different kind of normalcy. Sure, I was dealing with tremendous changes, but I was starting to find my way through them, albeit clumsily. Every trip out the door was a small victory, a challenge met and overcome. Yet, every victory was bittersweet, underscored by the undeniable complications of navigating a sighted world without sight. The day following my Walmart ordeal, I couldn't help but reflect on the helpful stranger who had come to my rescue. Ag's kind intervention lingered in my thoughts like a beacon of hope. I wished I could thank him again, properly this time, but life's unpredictabilities meant we might never cross paths again. His genuine kindness was one of the few positive things that had happened to me lately, and it gave me the courage to continue pushing myself. A week later, my husband suggested I try visiting our local library to return some audiobooks and retrieve more. Libraries had always been a sanctuary for me, a place where the world could quiet down and allow me to lose myself in stories. Now, with my blindness, they were even more of a lifeline, my connection to worlds beyond my physical limitations. Today, my husband drove me to the library and promised to pick me up in an hour. I could feel the anxiety rising as he drove away, but I quelled it quickly. This was familiar ground. Baby steps, I reminded myself. Walking through the library doors with my cane tapping in front of me, I inhaled deeply. The scent of old books and silence was oddly soothing. Staff here knew me, or rather, they knew the old me, the me that could see. I felt a small pang of sadness at the lost simplicity of those days. Navigating through the aisles, I felt a sense of empowerment. Unlike Walmart, the library was a quieter, less chaotic place. I approached the front desk with my books, feeling relatively at ease. "Hi, it's Sarah. I'd like to return these audiobooks and see if you have the new releases I requested." The librarian's voice was warm and familiar. "Oh, hi, Sarah. No problem. Let me check that for you." Her voice provided a sense of familiarity and comfort. While she went to check the availability, I waited near the desk, the sounds of soft footsteps and hushed conversations making this world a bit more manageable. I ran my fingers over the embossed titles of books on display, my mind wandering into storylines I might dive into soon. This peaceful interlude momentarily belied the ongoing struggle to adjust to my new reality. Then, out of nowhere, a child's voice broke my reverie. I felt a small hand tugging on my cane. My body tensed immediately. "Mommy, can I have this?" the child asked, his innocent question sending a jolt of fear through me. I didn't need this situation right now. The anxiety from my Walmart experience still lingered at the back of my mind. I gently said, "Sorry, this isn't a toy. I really need it to get around." The sound of rapid footsteps approached, and I recognized the hurried, sharp voice of another woman, one I didn't know, but whose tone reminded me too much of M. "What are you doing?" I felt the child release the cane, but before I could even exhale with relief, she continued, "Why are you bothering her?" The little boy's voice was hesitant, but I wanted to play with it. My grip tightened on the cane, braced for another confrontation. The mother sighed in exasperation. "It's not yours, and she needs it." Maybe it was a sign. Not everyone was an entitled monster. Still, my skin prickled with unease. The scars of past experiences don't heal overnight. The librarian returned with my new audiobooks, her smile evident even in her tone. "Here you go, Sarah. We have the new releases you wanted." I let out a small sigh of relief, grateful for the librarian's presence and eager to leave this potential drama behind. Taking the audiobooks, I thanked her and turned to leave the library, focusing on the rhythmic tapping of my cane against the floor tiles. My husband had suggested he'd pick me up from the quaint park adjacent to the library. The sound of birds and light chatter created a serene atmosphere, offering a momentary respite from the inside world. Finding a bench with the help of my cane, I settled in to wait. The soft rustle of leaves and distant laughter painted a comforting background. I allowed the tension to melt away, appreciating these small moments of peace. My tranquility was short-lived. I heard what sounded like a group group of teenagers approaching. Their loud, boisterous voices immediately perked up my defenses. Being suddenly thrust into a world of obliviousness to my struggle, it seemed others either pitied or preyed upon my vulnerability. One of them seemed to break away from the group, the footsteps coming closer. "Hey, why don't you watch where you're going?" he sneered. Surprised, I stiffened, unsure if he was talking to me. "I'm sorry, what?" I said. "Why don't you watch where you're going?" The sarcasm was palpable. Here we go again, I thought. Panic rising, I gathered my backpack and kept my hands tightly on my cane. "I'm blind. I'm sitting on a bench." "Blind, eh? That's gotta suck," he chuckled disdainfully. "Got any cool blind tricks?" The other teens snickered in the background. I was livid. Before I could react, another voice chimed in, this one familiar. Ag's voice, unmistakably calm and firm. "Leave her alone. Now." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. How was it possible that Ag was here, again, just when I needed him the most? I turned my head towards the voice, the sound of a heavy step resonating. The teenager scoffed, but I heard the shuffle of reluctant steps retreating. "What's your problem, man?" I said, "Leave her alone." Ag's voice reiterated, final and commanding, leaving no room for argument. I felt Ag's presence beside me, once again my unseen guardian. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone no less gentle than it had been in Walmart. "Yeah," I managed to croak. "Thank you." Again, Ag sat beside me for a while, his presence a comforting shield against the residual unease. I was about to ask him how he always seemed to appear when I needed help when my phone buzzed. My heart sank. "Hey, it's my husband. I've got to go." "Sure thing," Ag replied. "Stay safe." I tried to fumble a thank you as I navigated to my husband's car, but something about this encounter left me unnerved. Who was Ag, really? Why was he always there? And why did he walk away without offering any information about himself? The curiosity gnawed at me relentlessly. Who was Ag? Why did he seem so invested in helping me? A slew of questions bombarded my thoughts, but there were no answers in sight. Each day, fragments of the encounters replayed in my head, and every replay only deepened the mystery. My husband noticed my preoccupation and suggested, "Maybe it's time to let it go, Sarah. Focus on the progress you're making. You're doing great." I nodded but couldn't fully agree. Something about Ag's elusive kindness felt unfinished, like a puzzle with missing pieces. A month later, as I was walking home from a nearby coffee shop, I dared to ponder Ag's identity once more, my cane tapping gently against the familiar sidewalk. I turned the corner toward my street and suddenly halted. There was no mistaking that deep, resonant voice, softly thanking the barista from the coffee shop behind me. Heart pounding, I pivoted, determined to pursue this serendipitous encounter. I navigated back, each tap of my cane escalating my sense of urgency. But just before I reached the entrance, a woman's voice called his name. "Adam," she said warmly, their conversation fading as they walked away together. I stopped, a whirlwind of emotions battling for dominance. The flutter of excitement turned into frustration. Here I was again, so close yet still lacking answers. Was Ag just an ordinary Adam, with a proclivity for helping strangers, or was fate playing a game I wasn't privy to?